And we are live for the 121st episode of the Bronx Bomber Battle podcast. I am your host, Matt Luigi, and tonight it's me, it's Andrew, and it's G. How we doing, guys?
What's up?
We're doing.
We're
We don't
doing, we're
talk about the
doing.
home run derby.
Yeah. Just we're just getting off the home run derby. Andrew totally didn't have money on J-Rod. I totally didn't have money on Juan Soto. So we're just
I
going
was
from
over
there.
here doing dead lists to prepare for the podcast.
Matt Pete Alonso Graziano over here was just working out during a fan-friendly event that shouldn't be taken too seriously. But anyways, we're not going to talk about the home run derby, even though it was a great show. I always enjoy the home run derby. It seems like to deliver every year. We're here to talk about the New York Yankees, and this is kind of like the midseason review episode. The Yankees, as we currently stand, are the best team in baseball, as they've pretty much been for the past month or so. 64 and 28, 13 games up in the AL East, about a 5-game lead on the Astros for best record in the AL, which is so very important. So a lot going good. Obviously, the last series before the break was against the Red Sox, a series that, after the first game, especially, they dropped the first game in brutal fashion. Probably one of the worst losses. There haven't been many losses, obviously, but that loss Friday night was definitely a rough one. And it really seemed like, all right, after you lose 2 or 3 to the Reds, you drop the opening game to the Red Sox. You say, all right, we've lost 3 or 4. This team needs the All-Star break. They look tired. The pitching's starting to break down. And then they just absolutely demolished Boston the next 2 games and kind of made us all forget about that, losing 3 or 4. And yeah, here we are. Matt Carpenter's a god. Aaron Judge is on an MVP pace. All is good. All is good. Can there still be improvements? Absolutely. But hey, it's really tough to complain and too much when you're up 13 games in division. So yeah, we're gonna just kind of preview the rest of the season. Obviously, the trade deadline's in a couple weeks, so talk about possible moves the Yankees could go for there. Obviously, there's a pretty big name on the trade market that we will also talk about. One of the biggest names that's been on the trade market ever, in Juan Soto, who recently turned down a huge contract. Obviously, an outside chance the Yankees will get him, but we're still going to discuss that. But guys, thoughts about the first half of the season? I mean, shit. Probably the best first half of the season I remember in my lifetime, to be honest, because I'm not old enough to remember the '90s.
Yeah, no, for sure it was. Look, G and I were both in elementary school during the 1998 season. So if we told you we were fully invested in that team night to night, like I remember turning on the game and they never lost, right? But like you can't appreciate it the way that we can now, certainly. Yeah, one thing that I kind of really got humbled this past week is that I tend to be maybe wishy-washy is the word, but I get very caught up in the day-to-day grind of the season. Like one bad game, things feel like they're falling apart. One good game, you feel like you're unstoppable, and I'm very guilty of that. So like I'm not going to deny that, but one thing that like this team showed me this week is that they just always have a response. They're never down and out. You lose 5 out of 6 games, 3 straight over 2 separate weekends to the Red Sox, and then in between 2 out of 3 to the Reds. And you're thinking like this team's got a lot of problems. They're finally exposing their flaws, and then they go and they just bludgeon the shit out of the Red Sox the last 2 games in that series. So look, they're gonna have more struggles this year. Hopefully they're gonna not deal with many more injuries, but that part's inevitable too. But no matter what, this team always has a response, and almost always it happens to be in convincing fashion. Like they didn't just beat the Red Sox the last 2 games; they won with a 22-run differential over 2 games. Obviously, the injury to Sale was unfortunate, but like I was at that game on Friday, and it felt as miserable as it could be. Not the fact that they had lost their 5th out of 6 games, the fact they had lost their 3rd straight to the Red Sox, but the way they lost on a pass ball, I guess we want to call it, because it kind of bounced and then went like 5 feet in front of the plate, and Xander Bogaerts scored an extra innings. They went 2 for 15 with runners in scoring position. They looked sloppy on the bases, in the field. It just wasn't a crisp game by any means.
Just the fact they had bases loaded, nobody out, with just needing 1 run.
In the 9th and 10th inning, and they didn't score either. Yeah, it was just like one of those games where you're like, how can this team win the World Series? Like this team, the team that I watched tonight, there's no way that they can win the World Series. And then they just come out the next 2 nights and they completely change the tone. So that's one thing that, like, that's my takeaway, that no matter how low they get this year, they always have a response. And that's something that I need to take with me going forward into the second half.
Yep. And I would agree with that for sure. I think up until like very recently, there was a stat out there that said like in every game that they were losing in the late innings, I think that streak was probably broken at some point recently, but up until very recently, they had brought the tying run to the plate or the tying run to the plate in the last inning if they were losing.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, like just speaks to the resiliency, which has been pretty cool. And obviously, that's a huge departure from last year when it was just like depressing slog and nothing but misery. And it
Yeah,
was
I think
like,
the only two games this year that they haven't matched that feat was obviously the Sunday Night Baseball blowout against the Red Sox when they blew the 4-0 and then 6-2 lead and ended up losing 11-6. And then they lost that game to the Pirates earlier in the week. I think that game may have been by a few runs too. Final score of that game was 5-2. I don't really think they did much in the ninth inning there. But those were the only two games really where they didn't at least bring the tying run to the plate or put them on the on deck circle in any game they lost, which is just bananas.
yeah. And I mean, they're just fun. And I was, a Red Sox friend of mine texted me in the middle of, I think it was on Saturday when the Yankees were just absolutely pissing on the Red Sox. And he goes like, dude, who is going to, like, no one can compete with this offense. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of only, for the most part, like the top six are just insane. Like you could improve on Gallo, you could improve on probably IKF, even if they don't want to, they could. But like offensively, they're so good and they could get better. And right now, I think just an important development from my perspective of the first half was that they've given themselves such a cushion for the rest of, quote unquote, the rest of the season. Obviously, you don't want to get complacent or whatever, but like giving themselves such a cushion to get healthy, to make your acquisitions, to tinker and fine tune and whatever else, and hopefully just bring it home with an easy division win. But they're just so good in a lot of different ways, and they have, I think, pretty clearly distinguished themselves as one of the two best teams in the American League.
Yeah, obviously, they're most likely, obviously you never know, but they're most likely going to have the division locked up with about a month to go. But, they're only 4.5 games up on the Astros, and that's going to be very important because at this point, I mean, obviously there's no, exact number, but I would say there's, a 70-75% chance it's going to be Yankees Astros in the ALCS, more than likely. Obviously, no guarantees. You never know who's going to get injured, what could happen. The Rays, Blue Jays, Red Sox. I mean, shit. I mean, look at these Mariners, right? I mean, obviously we saw J-Rod almost win the Derby tonight. That would have been typical considering the Mariners have won 14 straight. But yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. But that Astros team is most likely going to be back in the ALCS. And hey, guess what? On Thursday, we have a doubleheader in Houston. So, I'm not wishing this upon us, obviously, but we lose those two games. All of a sudden, 2.5 games in terms of, best record in AL. That's not that much. So the Yankees still definitely need to go full throttle for the foreseeable future until they're like 8 games up on the Astros with 10 games left.
It's really important for the Yankees to not only split that series, but sweep. And I know the chances of you sweeping a doubleheader are slim to none, right? Especially against a top team like that, coming out of the break, whatever.
On the road in a stadium, it seems like we get shut out.
That's their house of horrors, yeah. So, but the Yankees are 3-4 against the Astros this year. So the tiebreaker is going to come down to the regular season series, which the only way the Yankees win that is if they take both games on Thursday. So it's unfortunate, but kind of where we're at.
Yeah, so real quick, let's just recap the Red Sox series. Obviously, we already talked about the Friday night game that Andrew so unfortunately had to be at. Definitely, like, it was funny. I had like a family gathering that next day, that Saturday, and there's a lot of Yankee fans there, and we were all saying the same thing: how that game was straight out of 2021. Like that game was literally taken from the 2021 calendar and was just placed in the year 2022. It was really unbelievable. Like those were the types of games we would lose last year, but. Enough reminiscing about that game because, boy, Saturday and Sunday were really fun. Saturday night, games on Fox. Right away, it just Devers hits the home run in the first inning. You're saying, here we go again. Like this guy is literally going to hit 6 home runs against us, and that was the only run the Red Sox scored the entire game. And guys, this was the Matt Carpenter and Aaron Judge game. Each guy hit 2 home runs. Carpenter had 7 RBIs. They pulled up the stat, like the only guys with like multiple 7+ RBI games. It was Carpenter, Ruth, Garrick, Mantle. I mean, look, obviously Aaron Judge in the year he's had, like out of all the Yankee stories, that's probably been all year the number one story, just how great Aaron Judge has been, especially after he turned down the contract in spring training. But man, Matt Carpenter was just obviously before this weekend he was awesome. He was hitting home runs, but this weekend was really just like the core, like a national TV, him having that performance, just like that was just incredible. I mean, guy has almost like a 1,500 OPS in a month, 13 home runs. I mean, you just can't say enough about the guy. I mean, he basically is going to effectively end Joey Gallo's Yankee career, basically just like the final nail in the coffin. It so seems. So, I mean, like other than Aaron Judge, I mean, Matt Carpenter has just been the story of this Yankee season, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to think that he just plucked him out of obscurity, right? As a 38-year-old, a 39-year-old, like he's had a good career and he was pretty good player for a lot of years with the Cardinals.
Yep.
But it's just wacky. It's just very wacky. And
I think it was Lindsay Adler who had that tweet, basically said how he showed up to spring training in like jeans. He was, saying he would do anything to get on the team, whatever it would take. And yeah, now he's like the story of the year. Now he's a fixture in the middle of this Yankee lineup. Because just think, before, like in the last few weeks, there would be like 4 or 5 game stretches where he wouldn't get in that bat or he wouldn't play. And you would kind of think to, especially as you're watching Joey Gallo go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts every game, you're saying like, wait, what?
You mean go 3 or 4 games? 4 for 55 over a 20-game stretch?
Isn't it crazy how, because they had another one, like, Hoke always tweets that out. And I said to myself, I feel like I've seen this tweet like 10 times this year, where it's like he's had like 7 or 8 like separate stretches of like his entire season is just like multiple 4 for like 40 stretches. It's unbelievable how awful he's been.
Well, he's a 160 hitter this year. He hit 160 for us last year. He's striking out over his Yankee tenure at I think about a 40% clip. He's a pretty good defender. You can't take that away from him, and he's decent on the bases. But like, if he's not doing anything remotely competitive offensively, other than popping a couple garbage time home runs to make the OPS, I think his weighted runs created plus is like 80, so 20% below league average. And that's definitely generous, and it's definitely inflated by the fact that he's got a bunch of garbage time home runs mixed in.
Right. It's a shame. It's a shame. I mean, they were talking about this on the telecast the other day. To be like, oh well, it's a shame that he can't hit. But he's like really good at a lot. Like most other stuff, he's pretty good at. Like he's pretty quick. And he's a good base runner. He reads the ball well. Like he can take the extra base. He's a good defensive outfielder. He's got a good throwing arm. Like all the other like everyday stuff, he's like really pretty good at, except for the fact that he literally cannot hit the ball at all, which is maybe kind of important.
Well, it's crazy though, because I grew up and I knew a lot of guys who almost made the major or like career minor leaguers, almost made the majors, and you'd be surprised at how many guys that happens to. Where you see guys and they literally look like the greatest fielders ever and have the softest hands ever, but they could just never make it to that next level. Like you always hear the term, quadruple A, right? The guys that like kill it at triple A, but then go up to the majors and they can't hit at the major league level, but then they go back down to triple A and they kill it. So like Miguel Andujar, like guys like that. And it happens. But yeah, Joey Gallo.
Former and current Yankee Tyler Wade.
Yeah, see, Joey Gallo, I wouldn't mind him for the rest of the year as like a bench piece, because Joey Gallo off the bench, like as like a defensive replacement, is like that's fine. But like
but here's my thing about Joey Gallo is that remember a couple years ago when we had Andujar during the middle of his rookie year, they'd yank him for defense replacement like the 6th, 7th inning, and then when they got towards the playoffs, it was Adeiny Echeverria every day. Remember that? Like. Adeiny Echeverria by no means is a good hitter, but he could put together some competent at bats, right? He could draw some walks, and if he did walk, he was fast as shit on the bases. Joey Gallo, if he comes in for defensive replacement and the lineup flips around and he comes up and again in the spot to either stretch a lead that we may end up blowing or comes up in a tie game where we're behind, now you've completely hamstrung your team by the fact that you made a defensive move and now you
Mhm.
hurt the offense when you actually need it. So I get what you're saying, but it's a double-edged sword there.
No,
And
I
this
agree.
is
I agree.
like relevant. And Brendan Cody was doing an interview and just like giving his thoughts about the trade deadline, and said, among other things, that his read was that he thought the odds that Gallo was with the team beyond the trade deadline are pretty low, even though they'd be taking, whatever, cents on the dollar from what they acquired, which, like, I didn't think they gave up, like, a ton to get him, but they obviously gave up something. And he was saying that he thinks the odds that he's with the team are low, and that it's basically pretty clear that they just need to move on and rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, I'm sure Texas is pretty happy with the return they got from us. Particularly Glenn Otto looks like he might be a nice piece for them, but you really can't play that. That's kind of like the fallacy of the sunk cost. Worrying about like what you gave up to get him. Like if he's not helping your team right now, and you can make improvements in a year where you think you have a chance to win the championship, and you're better off without him on the roster, then like that's it. You got to put the blinders on and just make that move.
Exactly. At the end of the day, like that, what you got for him or what you gave up for him means shit. Like it's like oh, you lost trade. Who cares? Like we're the best team in baseball right now. And we need to get this guy off our team. That's all that matters, right? It's
Right.
not.
And I
It's not
think,
like the return. It's not like the guys you gave up for him are like starting in the All-Star game, right? If it was that the case, then you're saying, oh man, this sucks. But yeah, they
and I
just got to
think
move
that's
on.
probably a good, probably a good segue, because, and I think we maybe mentioned this last time, even though that was only a week ago, but like, if ever, right? Last year was miserable and whatever. Like, last couple of years, they've been like pretty good here and there. Like, if ever, as we get to 2 weeks from the trade deadline, that there was a time to go out and just go all in. Like, for God's sakes, this is a year.
Yeah, see, I disagree with you, and I think we kind of talked about this in one of our group chats. And Luigi, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're kind of more in line with my way of thinking on this. I
Mhm.
think if you're in a year where there's not two or three so obviously top heavy teams, like the Yankees and Astros are laying waste to the rest of the league, right? Like if it's a little more of a balanced year and you're like the third or fourth best team and you think you can go out and make one big swing, like look at the Astros in 2017. I think they were already a really good team, and obviously they were cheating to help that, but like they went out and they got Justin Verlander, which far and away put them over the top. I don't know if the Yankees need that. I think if they went out and got a guy like Juan Soto, sure, like there's no reason why, like, right. There's no excuse to not win the championship if they were to do something like that. Right? If they go out and get a guy like Castillo, or we talked about any of the guys in the White Sox, if they start selling off, or insert, even if like the Giants want to throw it away, and maybe you go ahead and get a guy like Rodon. I don't know, but my point is, like, you could go all in, but I don't necessarily know if it's worth crippling your future. I think the Yankees are good
Mhm.
enough that they could win without that. So that's me just getting greedy, where I think we can do
And
just enough to improve the
and
roster to win this year, and also still have a stacked pipeline to win in the future as well.
and the thing is that people aren't realizing, if let's say, okay, like hypothetical, we trade for Soto, trade deadline, okay, we give up, I don't know, 4 or 5 or our top prospects. Not only are we gutting our farm system, we're probably effectively losing Judge, because there's no way that they're going to keep and sign Soto and then also sign Judge to 2 long-term deals, and then also
Yeah, and
keep
people's
paying Cole.
argument
Like that's just
there,
not going to happen. So you're
people's
all you
argument is that
yeah
you're going to get Soto for 3 years, but he's making 17 million in his second year of arbitration as a Super 2 player. So
yeah
he's probably going to make closer to 23, 24
hmm
next year, and then near 30 his fourth year. So by then, do you want
it,
Cole and Judge and Stanton and so
exactly
end of arbitration? Like, there's no way the Yankees. I know they can, in
yeah.
theory, they can afford it, but they won't.
Yeah, like look, as much as I was like on this podcast all off season saying the Yankees need to make a big splash, I'm at the point now I'm like, look, Soto, I'm not going to deny. Like if I get the ESPN alert that Juan Soto is a Yankee, I'm going to be thrilled. But it's just not something that I'm going to be mad at the Yankees not pursuing. But
And
yeah, at
I'm
this
going to
point,
say that,
it
like,
does
that
kind of suck
wasn't.
if the Mets get him, let's say, or if another team in the AL gets him, then it's kind of a point where it's like, like if another team gets him and they're a contender and that puts them over the top, then you kind of kick yourself. But I just don't think the whole thing of the fact that they got Soto, then that would effectively block out Judge, and we probably lose Judge. I don't know. I just don't think it's worth it.
And that wasn't even necessarily what I was thinking of in terms of like going all in, but like go get a pitcher. And Cuddy said in that same interview, he said that he thinks the Yankees will be in on Castillo. And obviously, most people, for most good players, are going to ask for one of, Peraza and Volpe. So that's just a matter of, like, if you want to do something like that. But, like, get a bullpen arm. I think now that, Severino's hurt for hopefully not too long, they're probably going to look for a starter. But, like, whatever going all in is, short of getting Juan Soto, because that's in my mind kind of a whole other thing. But, like, in the context of this season, right? If there's a pitcher, go get the pitcher. Be in on Luis Castillo. Don't maybe sell the
Right.
farm for him because I think he's a rental, but, like, go get a pitcher, go get a bullpen arm. If you could get Gallo off the team or get another outfielder from somewhere, bring some of the farm system guys up, like, all that stuff should be on the table because they are very good, and this is as damn good a chance as you'll ever have.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's fair. So I can think that's just a
Mhm.
difference of perspective for what some people may consider going all in versus me. Like going out and getting a bunch of finishing pieces. Maybe I personally don't consider going all in. I would say like even what the Braves did, trading so much of their top of their pipeline for Matt Olson, I wouldn't even consider that. Like you have to give away 3 of the
All
top 5, right?
Yeah, all in's like if we don't win a championship out of this, we're screwed. Like that's all
Hmm.
in to me. And like
And that's what the Yankees
like
did in the mid 2000s. Like they would trade decent prospects for middling veterans that never panned out, and then they had no pipeline. And then you saw a bunch of the guys once they were in other cities, not necessarily have elite careers, but think about all the guys they traded away, right? Like Mark Melanson and Melky Cabrera. Like they had good careers
mhm.
elsewhere, and the Yankees had no championship to show for those.
Yep, it's true. It's very true. But Luis Castillo obviously, shut down the Yankees when he pitched against them in the stadium this week. It was a great. Everyone was tweeting out like they shouldn't let Luis Castillo leave New York like that after that performance. They should literally lock him down in a room and offer him a trade. But yeah, I mean, especially with Sevy going down, and not even just Sevy going down, because the last month, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, the Yankees starters have kind of fizzled out. Like Cole's been fine. Cole's been. I think at this point, Cole, it really doesn't even matter what he does. It's all about the postseason. Like we kind of know what type of numbers he's gonna put up in the regular season. We really just need him to be that ace in October. But the rest of the rotation, you kind of just look at it and you say to yourself, Nestor obviously is an all-star, has had a great year, but he's definitely cooled down. So is Gumby, right? Gumby's Gumby. I don't think you're really relying on him to be one of your best postseason arms. Sevy has been good this year, but obviously he's hurt, and you just don't know how he's going to come back from the injury. So yeah, I think at this point you're looking for Tyone as well. He's been cold, so I don't know. I really do think all of a sudden after your pitching and especially your rotation was so good all season, now you're a couple weeks from the trade deadline saying, yeah, this team probably needs another starter. This team almost certainly needs another starter, and yeah, Luis Castillo probably would be target. I mean, there's definitely some good, Frankie Montas is also out there for the A's who will probably sell their best players for a bag of chips at this point. So that could be an option as well. But yeah, Luis Castillo, I would say, was option number one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset with any of those guys. I would be leery of them falling into the Sonny Gray type bucket. I don't think Castillo would be as much, but Montas maybe. Just think about how that experiment didn't really go the way we'd planned, and that was a guy every Yankee fan wanted us to trade for. We did. We traded some good prospects. None of them have really done much, right? Um, I believe Fowler was in that trade. He hasn't really broken through anything since. Caprillian's the only one with any staying power, and he's kind of finding his way in the Oakland rotation now. That's the one risk, right? That you go out and you make a big swing for a starting pitcher and you don't trust them beyond a 3 or 4 and maybe not even in a big playoff start. So they definitely do need something to cover Sevy. By the looks of it, it should be a quick injury, so maybe we have him back by mid-August, which would be awesome, and it helps reduce his innings anyway. We'll see what we get with Herman. They got Sears in the minors. They have Schmidt in the minors. So it's not a matter of like they need a starter to to stay competitive in the race because they have such a big lead and they have enough arms to get through the year. If you go out and you get a starter, it's because you want to have a lethal 1, 2, 3 in your rotation come October.
And I would say that if anything, I'm going to be really curious. For whatever options, I'd say in terms of in-house options, I would really give Herman a look. And as long as he's healthy, because I think, he's been going as a starter down in the minor leagues. And he pitched 6 innings his last time out a couple days before, what was it, this weekend? This week, basically. He pitched 6 pretty good innings. And I think he's basically ready to go. So I'd say if they needed starts, and they're going to need starts for as long as Severino's out, Herman would be my first look. And also, I'd say second on that list would be I'm just really curious to see what the Yankees' long-term plan is for Clark Schmidt, because if they have one, I cannot tell what it is. But
I'm almost worried that he would be a guy that gets traded, which would suck because I like him, but like they just haven't really carved out a role for him. And then he was doing okay in the bullpen, but they see him as a starter, so they send him down to AAA to make sure he was starting games and pitching on a regular basis.
And that's fine. I just hate that it's like when he comes up, he makes like a few spot appearances out of the bullpen and then goes back down. Like I think that's silly.
So the question is, do the Yankees just not have a defined role for him, or do they not trust him enough to give him a defined role? That's kind of the mystery of this all.
Right, and he made he made one spot start this year, right?
I think that
so.
was
Either way.
Early in the year.
Either way, those would be my 2 guys.
Yeah, Clark Schmidt, 14 appearances, 1 start.
Right. So
that was
I'm
the game
curious.
that they thought said he had COVID, right, and didn't.
Something
I believe so.
Like we've seen Herman be good, so I'm just curious to see, and I'm sure I'd be willing to bet that he'd get opportunity number 1 to come off and get those starts while Severino's out, and like he's got that gear, like he's got good stuff. Where like I'd be much more comfortable, and obviously this is generalization. Like I'd be much more comfortable with the idea of like Herman starting as like a 3 or 4 at a playoff game that I would be like a wiffle ball pitcher like Nestor or Gumby. But that's a generalization. Like those guys have both had success this season, and I can't take that away from them. But like Herman's had that kind of success, and he's got really good stuff. So if he comes back into the rotation and pitches well, then that could be a huge shot in the arm for them and could maybe affect their deadline plans.
Yeah, it really is crazy how the pitching was so amazing all year, but I still just think, I'm like, damn, we need a couple arms. And obviously that has a lot to do with the injuries, Sevy going down, obviously despite Chad Green, was definitely showing signs of rust before he, went down with Tommy John. Chad Green at this point, I'd rather have like Chad Green, 2022 Chad Green out there than Miguel Castro.
Who's not out there anymore either because he's hurt now too.
Yeah, I'm saying just in general, obviously, but
no, it's true.
It's just one of those things where, and obviously, Marinaccio hopefully will be back soon, but we've talked about this. It's like, man, do we really trust these guys? Like, it's rough. Obviously, Chapman is just a shell of himself.
It's actually pretty wild. Like and I think, Lasagna just came back and he's working through it. I think Chapman, on average, has gotten a little bit better with each outing. I was a little mad that he didn't get into one of those games Saturday and Sunday because those are blowouts, and those are like just fuck around and find out kind of outings where there's no pressure. Just go out there. But like, whatever, I'm not the manager. But like, Castro's hurt. Marinaccio, hopefully he'll be back, like you said. Herman, if he's back, I'm guessing it'll be as a starter. Britton, we're all expecting before too long, I guess.
Yeah, but you don't know what you're going to get for him.
But still, it's like when you get Britton as... Yeah, and this is what we're talking about, where it's like you're bringing in guys like Lucas Luetke and Wandy Peralta, who are fine guys as like your 4th and 5th options out of the bullpen, and now they're coming in like close games in the 8th inning. Like I don't like that. So,
it really is just like, imagine if somebody, even like before in spring training, if someone told you, hey, at the All-Star break, the 5 Yankee relievers with the most innings in this order would be Michael King, Clay Holmes, Wandy Peralta, Lucas Luetke, and Miguel Castro. You would think we were 30 and 60.
Fucked. Yeah,
You would think we were like, oh my god, like you're like, do we give up? Or like, are we the Phillies? Like, do we give up like 12 runs every game? Like that sounds so awful. But obviously, like G joked before the show, like, should we do a bullpen trust list? And we just said like, it's all right, it's Clay, King next. Like at this point, like Clay, it's Clay and King. Like Licky and Wandy have been good, right? For
they're kind of on there by default right now.
Right. They're look, Wandy 2.27 ERA, 0.95 WHIP. Licky 3.09 ERA, 1.28 WHIP. Like fine numbers, solid numbers for two solid lefty arms. But man, like we said this before, those are your third and fourth guys coming out of your bullpen. If you're in a long playoff series and King and Holmes have pitched each of the last two games, and you need 6-9 outs, and like Licky and Peralta are next to mine, that's worrisome.
You're not feeling good about that.
And then your third, you're obviously like we said, they're hurt right now, but. Let's say Miguel Castro and Ron Marinaccio, those are your third and fourth best righty arms. Like,
and here's the thing, like that like Loizaga already came back off the IL, looked terrible in one outing, but there's still upside there, and I think that's kind of why you still need to go out and get a bullpen arm at the deadline, just as insurance. Like if Chapman figures it out, if Loizaga dials it in, if Clay and King stay elite, then you have 4 innings right there in the bullpen that you're not blinking it. Like if your starter comes out after 5 innings, you got a 2-run lead, you're golden. But you don't. There's no assurance that they'll get there.
The problem
is, who knows? One of these guys could become, like Marinaccio. I mean, it's a long way from that, but one of these guys could become like the unforeseen, new decent bullpen arm that they're maybe okay with going to in a pinch like that.
You see, like the reason why, like I don't trust bullpen guys at all. Like relievers are just psychopaths. Like there's a good chance Loizaga just never finds it this year. Like they're like relievers just have random years where they're just bad and they just never find it, and they're on and off the IL. So I mean, there's no guarantee that Loizaga like regains his form. Do I think he will? Yeah, I think he will. Right, especially now he's got the break. Hopefully he's back healthy. But yeah, I mean, you just can't guarantee it. But I mean, Chapman, I have no faith in. Loizaga, I definitely have faith in him to get back. But yeah, I mean, you're like Andrew, you're absolutely right. I think Clark Schmidt's a guy that I really like, but I do think that's a guy that if the Yankees do make a trade for a really good starting pitcher or a really good bullpen arm, I do think that's a guy that we'll see go. And yeah, that'll suck.
Unless they just go ahead and YOLO it and they bring him up and they give him high leverage innings, which I don't see that happening either.
Yeah, I mean, but he has got an ERA at 3 through 24 innings this year, so I think he certainly earned it. But it's funny, guys. I feel like a few weeks ago, it was all the Yankee trade talk was, which outfielder they're going to get, right? Ian Happ. And now I feel like with Hicks and even with Carpenter, I think that's talk's kind of died down. Like, I really don't think the Yankees need another position player at this point. Like, maybe someone to replace Gallo as just like maybe like another outfielder if they wanted to do that. But maybe if they wanted to go with like a Laureano type just to have like a defensive replacement. I know you're not like a huge fan of that, but I don't know. I just really don't. I think that
I'd sooner replace shortstop, to be honest. I know it's not
Andrew,
pressing need.
You just segued perfectly for me there, because I was just about to say my two biggest problems in this Yankees lineup right now. It's obviously IKF, who still does not have a home run. We're at the All-Star break. He's still.
The thing they said.
Fun fact: the first Yankee. Is that you gonna do, Jay? I won't steal your thunder. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I think we're the first Yankee to go 250 plate appearances to start the season without a home run since Tony Womack.
Who, by the way, I'm pretty sure they cut before the end of the year, right?
Yep.
He didn't make it through the season, so.
Yeah, because they brought in Robinson Cano.
Right, that's a great trajectory for IKF to be on.
Yep. So IKF and Josh Donaldson is like, I think he kind of quietly, like I think people like us who like watch the team almost every game noticed, but I feel like a lot of people, he's kind of gone under the radar with how good this team's been. I mean, he was pretty bad the first half of the year. I mean,
he's been bad. Well, yeah, he had one.
He's slashing like 175. He's batting like 175 at Yankee Stadium. Like
he has. He's hitting at Yankee Stadium 175 with one home run. He has one home run at Yankee Stadium. Like someone posted that on Twitter like a few days ago, and it's one of those things that you see on Twitter and you have to like go on Baseball Reference and look it up for yourself because you just simply do like that can't be true. I'm like, there's no. I mean, he's played all year. He's played like almost 40 games at this stadium. 1 home run, and so yeah, and look, he's been fine defensively. He's a good defensive third baseman, but at this point, like, if the playoffs started tomorrow, I really do think that there's a chance that Donaldson is just not in that lineup. And I know IKF's been bad, especially at short, where he short hops like every single throw. It's actually
Every
unbelievable.
throw, man.
He has
no arm
12
strength at
errors,
all.
and I think if Anthony Rizzo wasn't his first baseman, he'd probably have 20. Like it's actually unbelievable. But yeah, I just don't like at this point. Like, I don't know if IKF and Donaldson are both going to be in that postseason lineup. It's because they both.
I watched IKF play.
I think you could have one of those guys in there, but I don't think you could. I think you need to replace one of those guys.
Well, if the Yankees don't get a shortstop, is it going to be Marwin? Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. I watch IKF play, and I'm like, damn, can we get Anthony Rizzo like that, like 15-inch Luis Polonia glove that he used to fucking play with? Like, it's actually, and we said this, we made the jokes in the chat where it's like he can make like an incredible diving play behind second base.
Sorry, you said Luis Polonia. You mean Luis Ayala, the reliever, who had the mega glove?
I think they both. It was a no. I mean, I was actually referring to Luis Polonia, but like it's the same sort of thing. I think.
No, we used to clown on Ayala at the stadium because he would do batting practice with that mega glove.
The IKF throws are just unbelievable. And Andrew's going to get mad at me because I'm going to make an MLB The Show reference. But, when you make a throw in MLB The Show and you'll perfectly time it, but it still bounces, and it's just like a weird glitch that it's in the game. Like, that's IKF. Like, it will be like a routine ground ball. Hey, everything's fine. The guy that's running
doesn't have to move at all. Goes right to him, right?
And it still short hops. I'm just like, dude, this guy. And like someone said in the chat the other day, how did this guy win a Gold Glove at third base? Like, did this guy just have like a bionic arm for a year? Like, it makes no sense.
That third base throw is harder, bro.
Exactly. That's why I brought it up.
So, all right, this guy gives me such indigestion. I don't want to talk about him anymore. So I'll talk about who we should replace him with. And for starters, I'd be perfectly okay with playing Marwin most of the time because he's good and competent and probably has at least the capability to hit 1 home run in the next 200 plate appearances.
He has like 4 on the year.
Yep.
Right? Like, I mean, I don't know. The IKF, like, him, I don't know, crushing one, like, we thought he, like, got it, and it, like, died before the warning track, like, a week or so ago. So, I don't know.
It really is one of those things where, like, I don't think he's going to hit one. Like, if he hits one, it's going to be an absolute scene. Like, I really hope.
Can we all remember, does anyone know if we have had, like, in our baseball watching existences, someone who got 400 to 500 plate appearances and hit 0 home runs?
I mean, I remember back
maybe I don't know.
I remember back in the day, Brian Roberts would hit like 4 home runs a season until that one season where he hit like 20 in the first half. But
all that to say, all right, so I'll go like, and I think I probably said it. We all probably collectively said it, but I'll keep saying it because they should do it. And if you needed an outfielder, bring up Florial because he's had a nice stretch of really good baseball. And bring up Oswald Peraza. Both are in AAA. Both have had really nice stretches this season. Both athletic, both young, both fill positions of possible need. But
Peraza
couldn't possibly throw
Florial's not going anywhere because Tim LaCastro.
Right.
Florial's going to get traded.
Castro every day.
And Peraza,
big dinner for Timmy this weekend.
Yeah, and look, if you want to talk about going all in, like you mentioned earlier in the show, Peraza's probably getting traded, so you're not calling him out because he's going to be with a different team.
Right.
All right, but if he doesn't get traded,
then I would much rather have Peraza over IKF. Sure.
If Peraza doesn't get traded, I would very much be for them giving him a shot, like late August to September. Especially, you're like 10 plus games up in the division still. Why not? What do you have to lose? Try him out. If he sucks, he sucks. Okay, fine.
I think
there's something to say
that over the Astros.
I think,
I'm saying if they're at the point where they have like a cushion. I said the division, but I meant like in general.
Okay.
I'm just going to keep beating the drum for those guys. Florial, who, he was like the guy a couple of years ago. He was the prospect, and he's rehabbed his prospect standing, I think, pretty well to that he should get a shot at least to come up soon. But all that to say, like, I guess maybe this is my question, an interesting question. Like, if you had to pick one of your quote unquote regular lineup guys right now, like if you had to pick like, let's say Donaldson or IKF to not put in the lineup during a playoff game or whatever game, who would you pick between those two guys?
Probably Donaldson, because IKF is useless offensively, and I know he has those yips throws, but I feel like he could pull off a sparkler, which may end up saving you in a big playoff spot. So like, I hate that I'm defending him in this case, but I feel like that I'd rather have him in a playoff game at this point than Donaldson. And I know Donaldson's a veteran. I know he has a lot more experience in the playoffs. He was with some really good Blue Jays teams, but I don't know.
It really is crazy how like he's just been low key. He's had some good moments, but yeah, like look, if dude, if it's at the point where if it's a playoff game at Yankee Stadium, I don't want Donaldson out there. He has one more home run at Yankee Stadium this year than IKF. Like he's 850 OPS on the road, and then he's like 600 OPS at home.
Like, and a lot of that damage is against Boston, which like good on him for taking care of business at Fenway Park. But like that's all he's done this year for the most part. He had that home run against Pittsburgh, which didn't really amount to much in a blowout. Yeah.
IKF hasn't played third base for the Yankees this year, right? Not even once, I don't think.
No. They acquired him to be the shortstop, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
I suppose even if you leave him in there, like, I don't know. I would probably take my lumps with Donaldson, even if you bet him like 7th, and put Marwin in there at shortstop. Because I think we've seen in my opinion, we've seen too many routine plays where the throw bounces like 5 feet in front of first base, where I'm like, okay, this is like a serious issue for me.
That could lose you a playoff game too. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it lost us one of those games in fucking Fenway Park, didn't it?
You never want to put
not turning a double play. So
that's very true. You never want to put a secondary like position guy at shortstop. That's just not something you want to do.
Yeah, but I guess I was going to make a point of like, oh well, at least IKF has a little more speed. So maybe you'd rather have him there. It's just so he's not going to hit into a double play. But all the guy does is hit ground balls. So even in spite of his speed, he's probably more of a double play risk than Donaldson. So like, there's no good answer between those two guys. At least not right now.
Would they? I know he hasn't. He's only played I think 2 games there this year. Why not just put Matt Carpenter at third for Donaldson?
You should.
And this is so that's the only concern about Carpenter is obviously that he's old. So like that's why I'm thinking.
Then why are you putting him in the outfield? That's where he's gonna get.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, bring up. Well, the whole point of all this would be to get rid of Gallo, so you don't waste a roster spot on him anymore. But like, if you can do that, then and you don't get an outfielder in return, then bring up Florial.
Look, I'm happy with a
and then you can
judge
play Matt Carpenter
like Castro outfield, or Judge Hicks, LeCastro, and Stanton DH with Carpenter at third. I think that's a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I'm honestly pretty okay with giving LeCastro like the non-Hicks or whatever. Even if you also just got rid of Gallo and brought up Miguel Andujar, like I'm okay with all these combinations. I'm just at this point, I think we're all pretty fed up.
I think they're going to trade Andujar. He requested a trade, and the only reason they haven't brought him up is because they don't want him to come up and see part-time duty and potentially not succeed and water down his trade value. Where if he's continuing to hit well in the minors, some team will look at that and be like, "Oh, cool! I see him slotting in the 7th spot in my batting order every night," and that's kind of what they're steering into. So. I think I'm
okay with LeCastro and Hicks getting or splitting. Keep putting Carpenter in the lineup, but like I think my concern with him is just age. Like you don't want him to wear out. So,
but Boone even just said the other day, like we got to be careful in and I don't know if this was a little tongue in cheek or not, but basically you're saying like you want to not start him every day because you want to keep this like magic that you got going. You don't want to like run out the effectiveness, right? So if you start playing him every day, then there's a chance that he kind of loses the magic, right? Whereas in the role that they've been putting him in right now, where he's playing part time, it's working. So kind of just teeter on that
I'd
line
say
between playing
if there
sometimes,
was
Yeah,
a
but not.
clear
especially
upgrade,
at his age. Hmm.
like if there's a clear upgrade on the market, be it at starter or relief pitcher or whatever, right? If there's a clear upgrade at outfielder where it's like, hey, if the Yankees get this, it'll be pretty good to go. Like, then I'd say go for it. And otherwise, I'm pretty okay with, like, well, Castro's at least good at something, right? He's fast as a motherfucker. So, like, you have that even as a bench player, right? Put him in the outfield like once or twice a week. Carpenter's
Jim
doing his
Castro also
thing.
has more home runs than IKF at Yankee Stadium.
um, Hicks has come back to be a pretty solid. He's had a nice little run here for himself before the injury scare. So, like, I think if you're coupling those three skill sets together, you're better off than just like running out Gallo every day. And if there's an upgrade that comes along, then that's great. And if that upgrade evolves, I don't know, bringing up Esteban Florial, then like, hey, let's do it.
Yeah,
I'm pushing the agenda. I don't care.
with Tim LaCastro, with the way this Yankees team likes to steal bases, I think if he played all year, he would steal like 50 bases. He stole 2.
Doesn't he already have like
days.
7 or 8 already this year?
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Yankees have more stolen bases as a team. They have more stolen bases as a team at the All-Star break than they do all of last year. So,
oh, good.
Yeah. Love that. Guys, anything else we want to talk about for the first half of the season before we kind of look ahead to this tough stretch the Yankees have to start the second half, man? Like, let me tell you, it's not even just the doubleheader against Houston Thursday. Then afterward, they played not the hottest team, but the second hottest team in baseball, the Baltimore O's in Baltimore, with that like 500 feet left field that no one's going to hit a home run out of. So it should be a fun one. But yeah, guys, anything else to wrap up the first half of the season?
No, I think we
Gallo's on the
beat
team
the horse dead. Yeah, like Gallo's gonna be gone in one capacity or another. They're either gonna DFA him if they can't get a trade partner, or they're gonna trade him for pennies on the dollar, and they're just gonna be okay with it. I can't even see them
at this point. It's like,
or they're gonna trade him for a new pitching machine.
Trade him for like an 8th man in the bullpen. Like,
that's the thing. Like, are they
gonna
go like the Luke Voigt route where they trade for a high upside pitcher who's like 4 or 5 years away, or are they gonna trade for a reliever who might help us this year? And you're gambling with the team that acquires Gallo is just like, we could find some juice left in his bat.
I trust Brian Cashman, and call me crazy here, but if Gallo is what you're sending out, I do not believe they will have a terribly big amount of options to choose from in terms of return.
Not at all.
If nothing else, more than just teams don't want to pay the remaining $4 million left on his deal this year.
I mean, we know the Yankees don't want to do it, but like,
well, so then maybe the Yankees can overpay to get someone else to take on that money. It's what they did to acquire him in the first place. Remember, the Yankees didn't say
Cashman's great at getting people to pay for things. Like,
well, that's why they overpaid for Gallo last year in prospect capital, because they said, we'll give you an extra prospect, or we'll give you an overall package that's juiced up by 10-15% or whatever if you eat all but $5 of his salary this year. I think the Yankees paid like almost nothing. So they may.
I mean, I trust Cashman. Like, the important thing is that he's gone, and at this point, if you get something back for him, then that's just fucking wonderful.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't even care if we get anything back for him at this point. It'll be nice to just have him off the team. And like, I don't even say that maliciously. It sucks, but like, yeah, at this point, it's like, dude, I can't watch him anymore. And
that's what Cuddy was saying too. He goes, like, Cuddy was saying, like, at this point, it's pretty clearly over, and that they're going to move on. It's just a matter of time. Like,
and typical guys who struggle with the Yankees fashion, he'll probably go to another team and hit like 20 home runs in the second half of the year. That's
see, I don't think so, and I've said this all year on this podcast. I really don't think.
You just think he's that broken?
I don't think it's a mental thing. I don't think it's like some people, just can't excel in New York. I don't think he's one of those guys. I think he's a guy who's just so busted mechanically that he's
Yeah,
not fun. It's
I
like he
believe
seems
it.
to be having fun. The players all like him in the clubhouse. I think
Right.
he's fine from a psychological standpoint, but you look at someone said it in our chat today during the home run derby. There was in the pre-show, like, oh, what would an uppercut swing look like? And I immediately was like, said to myself, oh, an uppercut cut swing looks like Joey Gallo. Like, so it's his mechanics. His swing is shit. He even had, after he had a home run in garbage time on Sunday, he had another opportunity with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 8th inning. Pitch was pretty much grooved right down the middle, and he had like a horrible uppercut swing, top spin the ball, and it went to medium deep right field. And most other power hitters, left-handed power hitters, would have put that ball on the second deck. So like I don't think it's in his head. I think he needs to see a hitting coach like Matt Carpenter did.
Like, it's funny. I'll just make like two random comparisons, right? Like Mark Teixeira, we always like for a while people were like, oh, he started uppercutting so heavily. He batted like 240. He batted 50 points better than Joey Gallo was batting, and had a
If he try
pretty
like 90.
yeah. All right, fine. Oh yeah, when Mark Teixeira was at his best, he was like a 310 hitter, but still,
Gallo's hitting 160.
when Teixeira, like in like the 2000 and whatever 11 2012 range, we started to like really drop his batting average. Was batting like 230, 240, and was like very comfortably better than Gallo is right now. And compare that.
I'm not going to repeat some of them, but there's like this Twitter thread of like old, like historically like injured players and like their final seasons versus Joey Gallo this year, and it was just so bad. Like, oh my god, it was like, oh, this
What's
44-year-old
Albert Pujols
player
up
had a
to? Like,
higher, yeah, like it's like, oh, look at this player who played when he was 47 years old had a higher OPS than Joey Gallo has this year. Wow.
you mean
So
Julio
yeah,
Franco?
Julio Franco, he played almost he was 50.
Giancarlo
Are you
Stanton
going to
has.
repeat the Lou Gehrig stat? Is that what you were
No,
trying
I'm
to
not going to
avoid?
repeat that. I'm not going to repeat
All right,
that one.
no. We
That was
all right.
that was one of the tweets I saw in there. Okay,
We
I'm
can't
not going to
repeat
repeat
that
that.
one.
Anyways, moving on to the Yankees'
Giancarlo
second
Stanton
half
has
schedule.
the like flattest swing possible, and he hits the absolute piss out of the ball. So like,
Yeah,
I don't know. Look, if Joey Gallo goes somewhere else and is good, then power to him because he seems like a good
yeah,
guy. And that's all that I have
yeah,
to say about that.
absolutely. But guys, I have a little fun activity, fun question here. So obviously the AL East, arguably best division in baseball right now. Every team is 500 or better, right? How do we think the AL East finishes 1 through 5? Like as of right now, right? We have the O's at 46 and 46, Red Sox are 48 and 45, Jays are 50 and 43, Rays are 51 and 41, and then we are 64 and 28. So we're 13 games up, but then 2 through 5 are all within 5 games of each other. So it really is. It could finish any which way between those four teams. My prediction, I think it's going to be the Rays and Jays. I mean, that's where they are now. Obviously, it's a 2-3. I actually saw like some interesting pieces about the Red Sox today about how they might be sellers after that Sale injury. You know, because there's a lot of people that inside the Red Sox front office that they are not high on that team. Like they have a great lineup, obviously, but without Sale, that they're 3 games over 500, and in a tough division, they might be sellers depending on how they get started in this first week of the second half of the season. So but yeah, guys, how do we think 2 through 5 is going to finish in the AL East? I mean, we're all assuming, obviously, knock on wood, we assume the Yankees are going to win the division at this point. I think that's safe to say. I mean, we've been wrong before, but I think it's safe to assume we're all going to predict the Yankees finishing first. So, how do we think 2 through 5 finishes?
I think Tampa and Toronto are going to swap spots. You still have Wander Franco out for a decent chunk of time, and I think Toronto's kind of rebounding from the Charlie Montoyo disaster. So I think they'll get hot and rally up to second. I think Baltimore will eventually level off, and Boston
Yeah,
probably
as
squeeze out, staying in fourth
as
place.
as much as I would love to see the O's like finish fourth and bump the Red Sox to last, yeah, I think they're going to fizzle out and probably finish like a few games below 500.
Yeah. So I would say it's exactly how it is today. Only you swap the Jays and the Rays.
And it's funny because all year we thought it was going to be 3 teams out of the AL East in the playoffs. But now Seattle, like if season ended today, it would be Seattle and Tampa. Toronto would be out. So all of a sudden now Seattle's kind of putting a wrench in the 3 teams from the AL East making it out to the playoffs.
I'm going to predict the chaotic result here. I will predict that the Red Sox finish in last and the Orioles get up to fourth.
No.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Orioles going to get to the third.
Yeah, I thought you were
They're
gonna say
going to
O's in
third.
second.
No, the Orioles. I think. Look, I love dumping on the Orioles. We all know that. I think me predicting them to not finish in last place is as big a compliment as I could possibly give them. But I also agree with Andrew. I think the Jays are going to get over the Rays. So I'd say Jays, Rays, Orioles, and Red Sox. And because, dude, I'm sorry. Look, the Red Sox are just not good. They're not. I think they only care and they only get up for beating the Yankees, and they're just horrible against everyone else. Like, and I mean, not that I'm a scout or anything like that, but I've been to like a bunch of Red Sox games this year because I live here, and nothing about them jumps off the page as being a good team. So, especially if they sell them, the Orioles have that like young, hungry kind of thing about them. And I think if the Red Sox tear it down and sell even moderately, that the Orioles, it might not be that difficult for them to get over the Red Sox.
Yeah, that could very well happen. But yeah, look, the Yankees second half of the season, man, it's 2 against the Astros. Then you have 3 in Baltimore against the O's, and then you have 2 games at Citi Field against the Mets. So, hey, those are 7 games against teams that are all 500 or better, right? And then 2 teams in the Astros and Mets that are the best, some of the best teams in the league. So, give me a tough 7-game stretch. And obviously, they haven't announced which pitchers are pitching then, right? Because it's the All-Star break. Cole pitched Sunday, so I assume he won't pitch till probably that Baltimore series. I'm assuming, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think they've already said
guys,
it's going to be JMO and Montgomery for the Astros games.
Yeah. And obviously it won't be Nestor because he's most likely pitching tomorrow in the All-Star game. He said he's got a few tricks up his sleeve for that. That should be fun. I hope he doesn't get too wild and like hurt himself or anything. Knock on wood, but I can just imagine Nestor like throwing right-handed or like throwing a pitch behind his back or just some wild shit he's gonna pull off.
It's gonna be so much fun.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm like trying to picture like something he could like plausibly do that like it, but I.
So like wait, Dusty.
He's gonna do some like Walter Johnson,
Dusty pulls
Satchel
him out of the game
Paige,
immediately.
like stretch your arms all the way over your head, swing your arm behind your back, like all that wacky old pitcher stuff. Like,
did Dusty definitively tell him he's gonna get into the game?
No, I just saw an article, basically a story that said Nestor like had something planned for like the game. So like I'm not sure if Dusty told him he's gonna get into the game, but I'm sure. Like I feel like Nestor's the type of guy that they would put in the game because a lot of the times you have the guys like Cole obviously just pitched, so he won't get in the game. A lot of the veterans who have been there a few times, maybe they're not prioritized as much as pitching as the guys who first time All-Star. Look, there's a good chance
didn't
Nestor
Phil
may never
Hughes pitch in like the second inning of a game the year he made it?
Because the guy, that's the thing. The guys who were just made it for the first time and had those great years, there's a good chance they may never make it back. So you want to get those guys an inning in the game, right? Whereas the guys like Cole and Verlander, hey, they've been to like multiple All-Star games and are probably going to be to a few more. So, but yeah, we'll see. It should be a good game. The home run derby was great tonight. It's been a great.
My favorite thing about the All-Star coverage so far is Dusty Baker, manager of the American League team, saying about starter for the American League team, Shane McClanahan, that he's never seen him pitch. When they both are like, Dusty Baker's the manager of the second best team in the American League, and they would have at this point regularly faced the Rays over the last like 4 years that he's been there.
That's so funny.
I was like, never change, Dusty Baker. Just keep doing your old wacky old man thing. Like,
and let's just make a quick note. And not that I don't know if you guys are rooting for this or not. I typically am against gimmicky shit. Like, if it happens, fine. But I'm not like openly rooting for it. But did you guys see what happens in the event of a 9-inning tie tomorrow? That the game will go to a home run derby.
I did see that, and I can't believe that you're not rooting for that.
Well, like I said, like I typically don't root for that shit, but I feel like I have to root for an All-Star game home run derby.
Andrew, let me tell you something. When you said do you see what they have planned? Like I didn't hear what they had planned, and about 100 different things went through my brain as to what could possibly be planned.
Well, like it's the ninth inning of a tie game with 2 outs, and Pete Alonso's frantically running back to the weight room to start doing deadlifts to warm up for the home run derby. Like,
Yeah. The home run derby is great tonight, but I think my favorite part of it were all the Pete Alonso memes and people just roasting Pete Alonso for taking it way too seriously. That was just so great. Oh God. But yeah, All-Star game tomorrow should be great. But yeah, guys, few days without Yankees baseball, especially after those, outscoring the Red Sox like 30-3 over 2 games. So it would have kind of been nice to keep having some Yankees baseball, but much needed break. Hopefully our boys do our 6 Yankee All-Stars all get in and do well tomorrow. And yeah, we'll probably do a pod after the 5 games they have start against the Astros and O's. And yeah, let's hope to have a good second half. Probably do a trade deadline episode as well. Maybe hopefully have a big trade to talk about, or we have nothing to talk about and we'll be mad, right? Because that's what we do. We just need stuff to complain about.
We just
But
plan
guys,
another Joey
and
Gallo
before,
episode.
all right, before too long, we're not going to have Joey Gallo to complain about. So
yeah, I'm gonna miss complaining about Joe Gallo.
It's just funny because like the Yankees have been so good that we've had nothing to complain about. And this week, like losing 2 out of 3 to the Reds was like genuinely annoying. But like losing 2 last week to the Red Sox, or the final 2 to the Red Sox, and then they lost the 3rd in a row to the Red Sox. And we're like, oh damn, I wasn't like super wound up about it because it's 2 days before the All-Star break, and they're probably coasting into the finish line and whatever, a bunch of other stuff like. And then they just went out there and just like beat the absolute piss out of them for 2 games in a row. And I'm like, all right, all the vibes are back now, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
Like they're coming in hot for this.
Winning cures all, and like we were saying before those 2 final games before the All-Star break, we were all saying, hey, this team needs a break. They've lost 4 or 5. They're really just need a break. They look tired. And then we completely forgot about that because they just absolutely blew the doors off Boston those last 2 games. So it was a great end to the first half of the season. Let's have a good second half of the season, right? But that'll be it for tonight's episode. Like I said, we should be back this Sunday. Guys, any final thoughts?
I'm so excited to be done talking about Joey Gallo.
It's honestly, Andrew, I'm going to miss it. I might just start a Joey Gallo podcast so I could talk about it. A little Joey Gallo like newsletter so I could talk about it.
I can promise you're not going to do that.
I promised myself I will not do that either. But
At one point, do we just start like openly campaigning, using this podcast, using our Twitter to just like openly campaign, using this platform and everything else we have to make sure that Aaron Judge wins the MVP?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously, Ohtani, it's always tough to argue a guy who's doing it on both sides, but us being simps for the Yankees and us being homers, we will.
And the Angels being a complete and utter disgrace of an organization.
And now Mike Trout's hurt. So.
The good old Tungsten Doyles, yes. But for Luigi, for G, for Andrew, this was the Bronx Bomber Ballad podcast. And we'll see you guys next time. Go Yanks.